There she is, the new Zoom voice. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Would you do us a quick favor, Jennifer and Pavon, and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourself? Jennifer, why don't you go first?
My name is Jennifer, and I run the operations team at Sunwest.
Awesome.
And I'm Pavan, and I'm the CEO of Sunwest, and been in Sunwest my whole life. My father started it, and I somehow ended up running it afterwards. The good news is that he's still he's 88, 89. Did he turn 89 this year, Jen? Or 88?
He turned 88. He turned 89.
He turned 89, and he's COVID free, and he's safe, and he's strong, and he loves the business as much as I do.
That's really great.
Yeah.
So do you talk to him about the business still to this day? Is he retired? Where's Dad?
Yeah, we on a regular basis. He's semi-retired. He focuses on the financials, as every good father should do.
One of the things that's been really interesting in all of our interviews is a lot of people talk about how they didn't grow up thinking they would be in the mortgage industry. Like a lot of the women that we've interviewed over the course of all of our interviews have said, I just kind of fell into this industry. But it sounds like you really, I mean, your dad started Sunwest. So how did you decide, Pavon, that you were going to be in mortgage?
Like I said, I don't think I had a choice. Well, I kind of had a choice, but the reality is that I'd been working since I was a kid. Maybe 8, even younger. Before mortgages, our parents were in real estate, and so as my mom and dad were a really high performance real estate team. Mom was a salesman, and dad did the paperwork. She closed. She got the deals in the door. The reality is dad was a terrible salesman.
Jennifer, how did you come to be part of Sunwest?
When I moved here, I moved to the US when I was like in 1999.
Okay.
And then I met Pavan through one of our family friends who used to work for Sunwest. That's how I met Pavan. I'm actually one of the ones who didn't think about, I want to work in the mortgage industry. I joined Pavan 22 years ago and started working on the software division of the company at that time. So, but learned mortgages here. So I've learned mortgages the Sunwest way. So
yeah. And Sunwest does do it a little bit differently. I work for Sunwest, so I know it's a little different. I work for other companies. And I too started in real estate. I think so many people have that in common. They work at some field in some area of the industry, and then they move into it at some point. So let's talk about how Sunwest does things differently. And there's so many things we could talk about. I would like to talk about what you and I texted about, Pavon, which was the lack of diversity in our industry and how Sunwest sits in comparison to other people as well.
Okay, well, I really don't know because I've not been inside other mortgage companies. Mm-hmm. So I really don't know the lack of or the extent of diversity in other companies. I have a pretty good idea of how other companies function. And that through just because we were in the technology business for a long time, and we still are. We have a technology arm, and we've implemented technology in many companies, from the biggest like Bank of America to NationStar to smaller companies. So I kind of get how they're run and managed, but I don't really get the culture because I've never really worked inside of, so I don't really understand how the culturally function. So I couldn't really tell you what they do differently. You'd have a better insight than we would.
But what has been your priority in Sunwest when it comes to creating a culture that is more diverse for women and people of color?
Well, the thing is, and it's probably not what you want to hear, but we don't think about it.
Mm.
Right? And we literally don't judge the person. We only judge the work.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we didn't have an agenda that we need to have a certain amount of diversity or this or that.
Yeah.
We only had the agenda of delivering quality work, take the personalities out of it, take the, everything else out of it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this is what we got.
So you say that you haven't done that on purpose, but there's a process, right? There's some kind of process in your hiring model that allows for any qualified person, as long as they're qualified, to be hired, regardless of any unconscious biases or conscious biases or anything that might affect the reasons people sometimes hire or don't hire people. Do you know of a process or something that you've done differently?
Well, most of the hiring that happens in corporate right now is, and Jen leads that hiring, so maybe you can talk about how you do that, Jen. I mean, I used to be involved in hiring, 15 years ago. And that process back then was very, very different than what it is today. But that process, I guess the process back then led to the process today. So it's not like we're 60% plus minority women. It's not a recent thing. We've always been this way. Mm-hmm. Right? It's kind of part of the DNA. I mean, even in the 80s, we were like this. Mm. I guess it's the culture that my dad set and that I learned. I only learned it one way. It's the way he taught me, and just sort of went down that road. But maybe Jen, you can talk a little bit more about exactly how we hire currently.
Sure. As Pavan said, it comes from top down, right? Pavan learned it from his dad, and I think I might unconsciously learned it from him as well. While I watch him do interviews or talk to people, we don't have a set of interview questions. We don't have an agenda of an interview, right? We don't even look at what their past experience is. Meaning like, okay, to some extent we will, but we don't put a lot of weight on it.
Hey, Jen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a lot of background noise where you're at.
No background noise? Hold on.
I think you can hear. Is that David or are you talking?
Okay, let me go to a different place. Hold on.
While Jennifer is moving to a different space, one of our interviews was with Patty Arviello, who's also down in Orange County, where Jen is. And one of the things that we talked to Patty about was building a company that people just know is open to women and people of color, because there's a lot of spaces where that opening isn't obvious and apparent. And Patty talked with Liz and I about how do you create a culture and a space where people know that it's going to be okay to work there, and it's more of an open space. And I don't think it's a coincidence that y'all, that Jennifer and Patty Arviello are in Orange County, right? Like there's a difference when you're operating in those spaces, and when you decide that even if it's not intentional, it's, you said this yourself, Pavon, that your dad set the company up this way. This is how it runs, and this is what it does. And it's been like that since the 80s. What do you think, Jennifer, makes Sunwest different from other people?
I don't know how others are, right? And that has been my biggest advantage and disadvantage. I know only one way and Sunwest way of doing things.
Yeah.
So I can't say how we're different, but I can tell you what I like the most here. Right? That's all I can say. I can't say, why is it different? Why am I here for 23 years? Right? I can speak to that. I can't say, how is it different from others? Because this is my first work experience, actually. I mean, it's a small work before that, but that doesn't really count. So
yeah.
What I can tell you that is different here is it's a flat organization, meaning everybody gets to express what they feel, what they think, what they view. There is no monopoly in decision-making process. It is whenever a topic is being discussed or whenever a decision is being made, it's like a war room. You get to sit around, talk about it. The best decision wins. It doesn't matter who suggested that or who said that, but whatever is the best from a customer service standpoint and what is the most scalable decision is what wins. So that is something that made me feel super excited when I joined this organization. I mean, I'm talking about 23 years ago, and someone recognizing what I say and what I think and implementing that for the entire company to follow, that is exciting, right? I mean, what else do you need? A whole company trying to follow something you suggested. That, I don't know where it happens.
It's so empowering.
It is. And especially for someone who has not worked and doesn't have any experience, or I don't have a resume, I don't have a powerful resume or anything. Being able to change something in an industry, in a mortgage company, which has been there for already 20 years and well established, what more do you need, right? So
yeah.
that is what excites me every day. That's what gives me the energy every single day. And what I experienced, I want the whole team to experience now. So that is why there is no monopoly over decision-making process. And that one thing makes me want to do this again and again and again every single day. I wouldn't change a thing.
That sounds fundamentally different than any organization I've ever worked for. That right there is the fundamental difference. Because not everybody, we talk, you use the word meritocracy when we chatted. We talk a lot about that, but very rarely is that ever implemented. There's a lot of closed doors in this industry, and there's a lot of exclusion in this industry. And what you described, I've never experienced in the business before. So I think we can honestly, I feel comfortable saying that that is what makes you different.
I'll give you an interesting story. So it's almost 11 years ago. We got the opportunity to pick up a really nice production team in Puerto Rico. And so I checked around, right? Because there's not a lot of business in Puerto Rico, and I checked with some industry leaders who will remain nameless. And everyone said, don't do it. Everyone said, don't originate in Puerto Rico because it's a different culture and the delinquencies are really, really high and you're going to get burned, and don't do it.
And how's it worked out for you?
Here we are 11 years later, we have almost 20% of the market share on the island. And our delinquencies are lower in Puerto Rico than they are in the States.
That does not surprise me in the least.
So there's 2 points I'd like to tackle on that. First off, one thing I love about Sunwest is our low credit score FHA or Govy loans. I grew up in rural Southern Oregon, and credit is not something that is taught to the average person. And a lot of people suffer from credit problems just because nobody's explained it to them. And it was always my experience that my low credit score government loans performed better than my other loans because they worked so hard to get there and to get that loan that they really cherished it and loved it. And in this industry, I see more concessions on conventional loans than I ever see on government loans. And I always thought that that was a violation, that could be considered a violation in our industry if we're only giving concessions on pricing concessions for affluent, mostly white communities, right? On the golf courses, those business relationships. And that's where you see them oftentimes. The second piece is on every redlining case that you ever suffer from, right? Like any bank ever gets, where they come after you and they get you and they say, listen, you're not doing loans in this community because it is a community that's considered poor or you're not going to make money in. The punishment is always to make them do business in that community. And every time they're forced to do business in that community, they make more money after being forced as a punishment than they did by excluding that community. That the very rationalization of not doing business in some place like Puerto Rico actually hurts them financially, but it's not enough of a motivating factor to get over their biases. And I suspect that that's probably what's going on in Puerto Rico.
Honestly, I don't really know what's going on here because the advice I got wasn't bad in the sense that the other lenders on the island, their delinquencies are about 6 times higher than ours. Right. So we're the anomaly. Right. So the data that was given to me when we took the initiative to start business in Puerto Rico was not false data. It was real data. It's just my conclusion is that I don't think the other servicers are properly respecting their customers. And that's a loaded thing to say.
That's what we do here.
Maybe could get me into trouble.
It's what we do here.
But
the things that we say, like,
yeah.
You're fine.
But the numbers speak for themselves. Right.
So servicers are known. I mean, servicers make the news all the time for mistreating their clients, right? I mean, we know that that's the case. Are your loans in Puerto Rico, and I'm just curious to use this as a case study, are you doing a lot of government loans in Puerto Rico? I don't do loans in Puerto Rico. And are you doing a lot of those lower credit score government loans in Puerto Rico?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's what, 60% government, Jen?
Yes, it's a little bit more than that. It's about 75% government.
Yeah, so it's a lot of VA, a lot of USDA. Puerto Rico's almost all
a lot of USDA, yes. FHA, VA, USDA.
Right.
How does that compare to the other people doing loans in Puerto Rico? Are they doing a lot of the govies as well?
Yes, Puerto Rico is a big government market.
Okay. It's just interesting. I would think it would be really interesting to dig into Puerto Rico as a case study, because I think as a loan officer, when you approach people and you give the heavy and you're like, okay, let's fix this, let's do this, let's teach you, have you learned, let's not just shove you in a low credit score loan, let's actually teach you how to keep that home and what the value is. I think people are open to that and they want to learn. It's been my experience. So I would hope that our loan officers in Sunwest are doing that, having that conversation, so people actually benefit from home ownership, which would be really great. Okay, that's cool.
So I have a question. What do you think, because your dad started this company in the 80s, right? What do you think has made Sunwest so successful and has kept you going long term over the last decades? What do you think is different about Sunwest? And I know y'all don't know, because I mean, like Jennifer said it, like, I haven't been in the other companies, so I don't know. But you've been in the mortgage industry long enough to know what sets Sunwest apart.
Yeah.
And what do you think, what is your commitment that sets you apart from other mortgage companies?
Well, I think that's actually an easy question to answer. If you, let's say you go on a Home Point shareholder call or Loan Depot shareholder call, or listen to any mortgage company, the first thing the leadership will talk about is production. That we will grow from this to this, right? We're at this and we're going to go to that, and then we're going to go to that, right? That's always what they're talking about. It's always that race to be number one.
Yeah.
Right. First thing I talk about is, are you happy? Right. Are our customers happy? Right. If I can serve my customers and if I can serve my employees, right, the rest will come, we hope. Right. Because if you're constantly chasing the golden ring,
yeah,
right, you're going to run around in circles.
Yeah.
I can definitely attest to that, right? I mean, as I said earlier, I'm here because I'm happy, and most of our senior leadership are all homegrown, meaning that we don't hire executives or managers, right? Everybody is homegrown, and when you promote that kind of welfare and things for the employees to make them happy, they're going to be very loyal to you. When you have loyal employees, you're going to automatically have loyal customer base, and loyal customer base is a happy customer base, right? So kind of works out. Our entire managers, senior leadership has been with the company for almost ever, 10, 12, 14 years, 18 years.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Liz seems pretty happy. So and I've been with Liz through some things, so before we wrap up, because I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I would love to know I mean, Liz and I have put together this conference for women in mortgage, partly because Liz wanted to give women in mortgage a different opportunity. So the women that are speaking at the conference are not necessarily, we've got coaches who do business coaching and coaching with women of color. We've got women who do financial coaching. We've got women who are going to be talking about this idea of owning wealth as women. And that's really, we wanted to give women a platform where they could speak from, because so often in the mortgage industry, one of the reasons Liz came to me was that the people who speak in the mortgage industry at the mortgage conferences tend to be white men. And that was something that Liz was tired of.
Old white men.
Oh, old white men. That's exactly what Liz said to me.
Yeah.
What do you, because you have this longevity in the industry, as you think about recruiting more women and more women of color into the mortgage business, what do you really want men to know about what it means to work with women in the mortgage industry?
Is that a question for me or a question for Jen?
Both of you.
I'll wait for Pavan to answer that question.
Pavan, you can answer first. How about that?
My advice to anybody, men, women, yellow, green, purple, orange, whatever, is focus on your duties. Do what you need to do it right, and do the best you can, right?
Yeah.
And it'll all work out. And one of the things I always tell everyone that I get the pleasure of interacting with, I say, you know what, just do something. Make a decision, take a risk, do it. You're empowered, do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't care if you lose money, if you end up losing us a lot of money, I don't care. Right. But there's one condition. You have to clean up your own mess.
Ooh. Good.
So if you lose money, that's okay, but be prepared to make it back. Be prepared to work twice as hard to make it back.
That's good. I like that.
And if you just stick to that rule, everything works out. Don't worry about the person next to you. Right? Just worry about yourself. You can't control anything in this world, right? Let alone, none of us can really control our minds. So why are we worrying about the person next to us? Let's just try first to gain our center and try to control ourselves. And if we can do that, everything just flows from there.
That's good. I can see, Jennifer, why you've worked here for so long.
Yep, I'm telling you.
So
And in
I don't
fact,
know.
yeah.
Jen, I don't know if I stole your thunder.
No. It's not stealing anybody's thunder. I mean, as you clearly said, right? Now you know why I work here, and how that empowering stuff works. And two things that Pavan mentioned. I am a standing example for two of the things that he said, right? He doesn't care if we lose money, as long as we know what we did and we can clean up our mess and work doubly hard to make that up, right? Not from a money perspective, but, of course, we're all here to earn a buck or, pay our bills and everything, but
I'm all about money.
that is not the front and center. Like when as I said, I say this example to everybody every single time because it's a fact. And I'm talking about, I want to say 2008, 2009, when I first started working in operations. I used to work in the software division and I started working in operations. And God knows why Pavan trusted me in taking trades, and I lost $40,000. And at that time, that $40,000 was our annual salary, company's annual salary, right?
I mean, $40,000 back then was like, I don't know, $4 million today for us.
Yeah, exactly, right? And I messed up. I screwed up. I go tell Pavan, I messed up. I lost $40,000. Okay, what happened? This is what happened. All right, you know what to do. Is this going to happen again? I was like, no. From that day onward, that hasn't happened again. So that is why it's a true testament to what Pavan just said earlier. That is the culture we live with. It's not about who I work with, who is around me. It's a male, female, black, white, yellow, orange, as he said. It's about what I do, how I do it. What am I contributing towards myself, towards the community, and towards everyone around me? That's what that matters. And that's all that matters. And if I'm happy, then everybody around me is going to be happy. That is a toxic thing to spread around. And it does spread. If I'm happy, everyone around me is happy. And everyone is happy, we are going to have happy customers. So yeah, it is the truth. It is the fact. And I'm a standing example for that. I can guarantee if it was any other company, probably I'd have been fired the minute I said I lost $30,000. And it doesn't happen here. It doesn't happen even today.
It's such a wonderful testament to the difference in the way you run business. It's really great. Liz, do you have anything you want to add? We've been going for like 36 minutes, so I don't know.
I think it's late where Pavon is. So
thank you so much, both of you, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for supporting the work that Liz and I are doing. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
Good night.
Nice to meet you.
Right.